Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, this is a very well done video by Dougie Corrado. I have forgotten whom I saw this video from. I apologize. But I'm going to let you guys hear some of what he's saying. And then I'm going to skip to different parts of the video to explain from my viewpoint what's going on. And then I will leave a link in the description box. But I'll let him set this up. Hopefully he's okay with me commenting on his video.
Taken over downtown Clearwater, Florida. These people are everywhere watching your every move. It's absolutely horrifying when you see it for what it really is. If anyone has any more information on this, let me know. But here's my story of the cult of Clearwater. But I'll be quick. If you're ready to suspend your disbelief and become fully immersed in today's adventure, you found your new favorite channel. We post once a week, but there's plenty on the channel to binge. So if you're ready, like the video for good luck, because you're gonna need it. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss an upload. Enjoy the show. So a few years ago, my friend Ebro and I decided to go on a little boys trip to Clearwater, Florida. We stayed on Clearwater Beach, which isn't actually downtown Clearwater. It's a little island off the coast of Clearwater, but the place is absolutely stunning. It was very fun the first couple days, but by the third day, we decided to go get dinner in downtown Clearwater. We thought the easiest...
Okay, here he's talking about how him and his friend are walking towards the restaurant that they want to go to, and they see one of these, I believe it's a white bus. It's like this really huge bus full of people with like limo tint windows, and it's really weird. And then there's this young guy running all over the place, like sprinting. I already know what that is. The kid is on the RPF, which is illegal, but, you know, apparently laws don't matter anymore.
That weird. So we decided to take a detour around that block. Even if it took a couple extra minutes to get to the restaurant, we didn't really want to walk past what just happened. It was worth it to walk around. But the other block was not doing us any favors either. At first we thought, this second block is definitely better than the last one because we don't see any signs of weirdness. But then we noticed that there were odd vehicles sporadically parked down the street. There were about 7 completely white, unmarked buses parked directly in front of black gates, very similar to the...
Those are the Scientology trafficking buses.
Black gates that they had just herded 40 people from one side to the other. And these massive buses were parked in places that seemed as if they were waiting for a herd of people to be shuttled into them. But on top of the position in which these buses were parked, the windows were also completely blacked out. You couldn't see into them, which is kind of typical for transportation vehicles like coach buses and things like that. But what freaked us out was that it was the same reflective tint as the buildings around it. This got me and Ebro talking, and we were starting to brainstorm, like, what could this area be? Is this some type of...
Let's not forget that in those buses there are children. Children. Otherwise known as minors, 18 and under children.
Penitentiary or some type of mandatory rehab center. It was the only thing that would make sense to us. We were just spitballing ideas at each other, and that seemed to be the obvious conclusion that the...
Okay, now he's talking about the scared kid that's running all over the place, sprinting, and he's covered in sweat. That is the RPF prisoner I'm talking about. You know, the Scientology prisoner.
Be over 18 years old. And when I was grabbing him and pushed off, he felt like...
There you go. Can't be over 18 years old. Child labor, anyone?
couldn't have weighed 120 pounds soaking wet. Not to mention, he was wearing all black, just like the other guy that we saw sprinting across the street.
Black equals RPF, Rehabilitation Project Force, FBI, Homeland Security. In case you didn't know, I just want to let you know.
The beginning. I couldn't tell if it was the same guy that we saw sprinting earlier, but this kid was sprinting with such intensity that he collided into us and couldn't stop. Ebro was as confused as I was because I tied up with this kid like I was about to start throwing knees to the body, but I broke the tension of the situation by asking this 18-year-old kid if he was okay. And I did a playful laugh a little bit to try to break the tension to make him feel a little bit more comfortable around me. And I made a little joke telling him he scared me for a second. I was about to start swinging, trying to make him laugh. But this kid looked at me with a 1,000-yard stare, like he was looking right through me. And when
1,000-yard stare, otherwise called Scientology stare. It could be also called MK Ultra stare, and otherwise most definitely called disassociation. In various types of cults, when children or adults are put into trance state, most of the time through torture, they split off into various alters and disassociate. So just severe trauma alone will disassociate a person. They might not create alters, which is fragments of a person's mind that create, some people might call them a personality, but they're mostly called an alter. It's to split the mind, basically. And when you see that look, that's a sign of disassociation. Or in other words, might be called a trance state.
I tell you, this kid looked dead behind his eyes. I actually don't even know how else to explain it. It was as if he was emotionless and just a shell of a person. And he was covered in sweat as if he had been running for hours. And like I mentioned, he didn't feel like he was 120 pounds soaking wet. He was actually probably 120 pounds and soaking wet with sweat. It was gross when I grabbed his wrist.
Okay, now he's talking about a young woman who is standing in their way on the sidewalk. Wouldn't that be called, let's see, in Los Angeles, wasn't that what the LAPD and Scientology were working together to say people were impeding the doorway or the entryway of the recruitment center? So there must be some type of charge for that when someone is impeding your walkway.
Things into our hands and just speaking to us, not even asking us if we're having a good day, just talking directly at us. But her facial expressions didn't match her actions, and neither did her voice. Her face and voice were so void of emotion and humanity, and her eyes had this gloss over them, similar to that 18-year-old that ran into me.
That is what all the L. Ron Hubbard policies of Scientology does to people. So I feel compassion for a lot of these people, and I think it's important that we all feel a little bit of compassion. Not for the predators, but there are a lot of people in there that need our help to get them out or to get their whole families out. So, anyways.
If one of her friends came up to us and told us that she was sleepwalking right now, I would have believed them. And her tone was even more odd than the expression on her face. It was as if she had some obscure sales pitch memorized and was taught to say the things with certain inflections and specific emphasis on certain words. But since she was sleepwalking, or seemed to be sleepwalking, everything came out in a muffled tone. After she planted herself right in front of us, she just goes, "You two look like passionate young men, but there's always room for improvement. If you follow me, I'll provide a free personality test to start your journey into reaching your potential. That sentence that I just said can't be said blandly. Talking about self-help and reaching your potential, coming from somebody that was giving off her energy, were two incredibly conflicting messages. Because whatever self-help she's practicing, I don't want it. Like, she should have delivered.
And again, like I've been talking about for the last few days, that's the trap. All these, what I've been noticing is all the dark occult mind control programs. I'm just saying that in general statements. They're traps. Just like we're seeing in Hollywood. Even as far as that goes, the correctional officers that are R-ing the women, it's not necessarily that they are dark occultists, but it's very dark energy. It's a trap. Those women in the prison, they can't leave. Somebody joins Scientology, they're 18, 19 years old. They can't leave. Jehovah's Witness, you want to leave, you can't leave.
That line like this. You two look like passionate young men, but there's always room for improvement. If you follow me, I'll provide you with a free personality test that will lead us to unlocking your potential. But this girl's just completely deadpan, and before I'm able to completely turn down her offer, I see something about her that concerns me, and it actually got me interested in asking her more questions. This might sound a little bit odd, but I noticed that her hands were incredibly dirty, and I don't mean that in a vain way. They weren't...
You guys know that chances are she's on the RPF as well. Or it could be the estate's project force. Doesn't sound like the estate's project force. So she's on some type of punishment that would make her hands so dirty. Why they would have her out there trying to give personality tests? Kind of strange.
Ooh, dirty. It's not like she had ketchup on her hands and I was just being nitpicky, like, oh, look at this dirty lady. Her hands were construction worker dirty. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but where you could see
Well, you know how they love their children to do the construction work in Scientology. Now, she's not a child from what I can tell, but, they love to make their women work like men, and they love to make the children work like adults, which is allegedly against the laws in all these countries, but, greed, I guess.
Film of dirt being built up in the ridges of her fingerprints, almost as if the depths of her hands are black, and there's just a dirt.
Okay, I'm skipping around a little bit, you guys, because I don't want to share the entire video because it's too long, but I want to cover some key points, and then you guys can go watch it on your own. But I do want to comment on some of these things. So here he's still talking to the woman who's trying to make him take a personality test. Her name's Claire, by the way. And then his friend starts asking her some questions.
There must be some type of monetary reward for this. And this girl replied something devastating. She said, at the org, we're provided a very generous $57 a week. Food and housing are provided, so all of that extra money is for me to save. This was a massive red flag. This was a grown woman. And anybody watching this knows that $57 in this economy, that's not enough to get by. I'm pretty sure eggs, a gallon of milk, and butter come out to $78.54. Somehow $5 footlongs are now $16.50, and the dollar menu at McDonald's is now the $5 meal deal. What I'm trying to punch home is...
And also, too, you guys, that's why all these people we're seeing are so underweight. But yet, these federal government agencies are not willing to do anything to help these children or these adults. I mean, yes, the adults can just walk away, but I don't think it's as easy as everyone's trying to make it sound. I don't think it's as easy as we want to make it be.
That this girl could not get by on $57 a week, even if they're covering her housing and food. Plus, she looked so overworked. So that realization prompted my next question, which was...
Imagine that. Clearwater PD over there, they're getting all that extra payments from Scientology, from this overworked woman, and the overworked children over there in Clearwater. And that's something else? Allegedly covering up crimes for that. It's my opinion. So basically, they're trying to help this woman, but she's under duress, she's under coercion, she's being blackmailed, having her children and her husband held over her head. And we'll see what comes next.
Hadn't made any eye contact or changed her expression. She blankly said, a blatant lie. They feed us more than we can ever eat. And my husband or children are exactly where they should be. The kids are studying at the ranch, and my husband is at RPF getting realigned. So this was
So that's what they say. RPF getting realigned. I think she was in like some type of ethics handling. That's what I'm thinking is going on with her, because she's repeating all these statements. And it does make me wonder if herself and her husband were privately, in their own minds asking questions or just wanting to leave. Because they can't stand that. So the first thing they do is separate the husband from the wife. Isolation. This is what the dark occultists do. They divide. That's why on the news you always see stories that are always dividing people. Black person versus white person, gay person versus straight person. It's the oldest playbook in the book. Divide, divide, divide.
big step for us because now we know that she has children and a husband. So our main priority in that situation is to get in contact with this guy because his wife is clearly not okay. She clearly needs some help, probably a meal.
And that's the last thing that these Scientologists want, is for her husband to be there to protect her. It's how they operate. So now, I fast forward a little bit. Him and the friend are at the restaurant, and it's all desolate, even despite the fact that there were all these good reviews. Because you know why this is? I'm not going to spoil anything, but I venture to say that it's a Scientology business, and you guys will see why. We're going to listen to some of this.
Warm pre-made burger sitting in front of us and a TV blaring a game at 100% volume that we couldn't care less about. It's very odd.
So I believe that this is one of their, mind control. They do use music and noise a lot. Even if you guys go and look to see how prisoners are tortured, they will play the same song over and over for days on end. Scientology is doing the same thing. So the fact that this guy turned on the football game or whatever it was really loud, he doesn't want other Scientologists to hear what these two guys are saying, because then they might be exposed to, there's people on the outside that'll help us. So a lot of these Scientologists do know, they get to a point where they know what's going on, and in order to keep the ruse going and keep their power and control, they're the ones that I would call the handlers or the fixers.
Moment after all we just experienced. Nothing about it felt right. We're just sitting there, just kind of like, where's everyone at? Why are these burgers ready? And I'm gonna be honest, my girl will tell you, I'm a picky eater. I was not touching this burger. And now all my mind could think about is leaving. Everything about this feels off. So I decided I'm gonna suggest an idea about getting out of here to Ebro because I don't know how interested he is in these soggy fries, but I'm trying to go. So I say, hey.
Okay, so there's a part in this story where this guy is with his friend Ebro, and they want to help Claire. So at some point, they're just saying, if you need help, blink at us twice, something like that. And I strongly feel that whomever was running that restaurant or working at that restaurant, giving him that microwave burger, I think he was a Scientologist. I'll call him a handler. Scientologist handler.
would look at what he was seeing immediately. So I whipped my head towards the front of the restaurant, and there's Claire, small lady, barely has her head over the windowsill, blinking really hard in 2 increments, over and over again, trying to get our attention. It was as if she was trying her best to do Morse code with her eyes. And I don't care what the bartender said, this girl was no volunteer because she came back to find us to get help. So we waved to her to come into the restaurant so we could talk to her off the street, because we just wanted to let her know that we're leaving right now and she could either come with us or stay in this establishment and call the police. She seemed reluctant at first. She seemed very dedicated to just standing.
And we all know the police ain't going to do anything for them. I mean, there's probably 1 or 2 decent Clearwater cops that would help, but I would venture to say, in my opinion, it's my opinion. It's free to have an opinion. It's free to have a belief about things. I believe the majority of the Clearwater PD and the government officials are bought off. It's my opinion. It is free to believe.
They're blinking repeatedly, not listening to our gestures to come in, but eventually, after we waved hard enough, she actually came in through the door. But as she entered the restaurant, she started walking up to us, but then stopped halfway and then just stood there frozen in fear. And I could tell that she was looking at something behind us, so I whipped my head around, and I see the bartender standing behind the bar, looking at Claire very intensely.
The handler kind of reminds me of what Mike Rinder probably used to do when he was in the Sea Org, right? And what's the other guy's name? Rathburn, Miscavige, all these people.
Pretended to greet her kindly, to save face in front of us, but I saw the intention in his eyes that he was trying to tell her. He was threatening her with his eyes. I saw it. It was subtle, but I could see what he was doing. He then asked us, without looking away from her, "Is this the person that you were talking about?" And I knew in that moment he was trying to get us to tell on her, but I wasn't going to do.
Dude wanted them to do a KR on her, huh?
That. I was trying to come up with something in my head, but Ebro came up with something even quicker than I could. And Ebro just confidently says, "No, this is Claire. She's taking us for a free personality test after this." The one that we were worried about was wearing all black and sweaty. This was a bold thing for Ebro to do because the only people that we had seen in all black were men. So he could have slipped up with this risk that he was taking. We didn't know if there were certain gender roles in whatever this organization was, but apparently there wasn't because it worked. The bartender went, "Oh, that's why you were worried about them. Those individuals are..."
You guys see the layers of sickness? And I commend these 2 young men for doing the right thing. And it just goes to show how many of these male Scientologists, well, and a lot of the women too, they're complicit in this. Yes, some of them are under coercion, but they're complicit with all this abuse. And they're complicit, and also a lot of them are, how do you say it? They are abusing themselves. And these folks do need to be held accountable. A lot of these people that are doing these various abuses do need to be in jail. Not all of them. But you think about this lady, Claire. She's got her kids she's concerned about. Her husband's in the RPF. I think that she was under some type of punishment. I don't know if she was in the RPF. She could have been, with those dirty hands. But the way she was talking about her husband was in the RPF kind of made me think she wasn't in there too. But, just like they like to do, they like to divide the husband and the wife. Go and read Jenna Miscavige's book, how they divided her and her husband. And they separated them for days and days and days and drilled them separately, which they do in all controlling or, well, I don't want to say communist because I don't know that much about all that stuff, but in all these kind of controlling environments, these diabolical environments, these controlling structures, they always do the same things.
an RPF. It's a very tough program, but I promise you they're going to come out better the other side. I can assure you, if they're wearing all black, you have nothing to worry about with them.
Prison camp, prison camp. And mind you, remember how he said earlier the kid couldn't have, well, he didn't say it, he didn't call him a kid, but he said he might have called him a kid, I don't remember, but he said he couldn't have been over 18 years old. So mind you that these children are being punished like this. And the cops just need to be doing something. I mean, it's easy for us to put it all on them. We all need to work together because this is just, it's enough. It's enough. Just like children of God is enough. It's enough with this.
They're just going through a little bit of hardship. And you're in great hands with Claire. And that personality test, it's going to change your life. Ebro's risk paid off because the bartender seemed very excited that we were ready to leave and take that personality test. But we had to let Claire know right when we got outside that we were intending on leaving, while still being...
Anyways, you guys, I'm not going to ruin the whole ending, but you guys really should go check it out. He did a really great job explaining. And the word is really getting out. And we see what they're trying to do in Clearwater. We see what they're trying to do in LA and all these other orgs. But the fact that all the child abuse is coming out, I think it's like just slowly crumbling right now. And it's imploding from the inside out. It's been imploding ever since William Good started this. It's been imploding. I mean, I think it was already imploding before, but now it's just like, it's not something that can be stopped. So I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Peace.